There is a religion that most people have never heard of. It has almost no followers left. Its temples are crumbling. Its scriptures are largely forgotten. And yet this one religion, more than any other force in human history, shaped the way billions of people think about God, the afterlife, good and evil, angels and demons, the end of the world, and the very structure of the spiritual universe. Christianity didn't invent heaven. Islam didn't invent hell. Judaism didn't invent the devil. A Persian prophet named Zarathustra did, over 1,000 years before Jesus was born, over 1,000 years before Muhammad received his first revelation, over 5 centuries before the Jewish people were even exposed to these ideas. One man, standing in the deserts of ancient Iran, looked up at the sky and described a cosmic battle between good and evil, a final judgment day, a paradise for the righteous, and a pit of torment for the wicked. And every major religion that came after him copied his homework. This is the story of Zoroastrianism, the dead religion that built the spiritual framework the entire Western world still lives inside. And the fact that almost nobody knows this might be the greatest theft in the history of human belief. To understand how one forgotten religion shaped everything, you need to go back roughly 3,500 years. Somewhere between 1500 and 1000 BCE, a man named Zarathustra, known to the Greeks as Zoroaster, was born in what is now northeastern Iran, or possibly Central Asia. The exact date and location are debated, but what is not debated is what he did. He looked at the polytheistic religion of his people, the ancient Iranian faith with its many gods, its animal sacrifices, and its ritualistic priests, and he rejected it. He did not just reform it. He tore it apart and rebuilt something entirely new. Zarathustra declared that there was one supreme God, not many gods. One. He called this god Ahura Mazda, meaning wise Lord. Ahura Mazda was the creator of all things, the source of truth, light, and order. He was uncreated, eternal, and entirely good. This was revolutionary. In a world where every civilization worshipped dozens or hundreds of gods, where divine beings were jealous, petty, and morally ambiguous, Zarathustra proposed something radical: a single God who was purely good and who stood in opposition to everything evil. But Zarathustra did not stop there. Because if God is entirely good, then where does evil come from? His answer changed the world. Zarathustra introduced a figure called Angra Mainyu, also known as Ahriman. Angra Mainyu was the embodiment of evil, destruction, lies, and chaos. He was not created by Ahura Mazda. He existed independently as the cosmic opposite, the adversary, the force of darkness locked in an eternal battle against the light. Stop and think about that for a moment. A supreme God of pure goodness, opposed by an independent spirit of pure evil. A cosmic war between light and darkness. A battle that plays out not just in the heavens, but inside every human heart, because every person must choose which side they serve, and every person faces that choice. If that sounds familiar, it should, because that is the exact framework that Christianity, Islam, and Judaism all adopted. God versus Satan, Allah versus Iblis, Yahweh versus the adversary. The entire concept of a devil figure, a supreme evil being who opposes God and tempts humanity, did not exist in early Judaism. It did not exist in any Abrahamic tradition until the Jewish people came into direct contact with Zoroastrian theology. And that contact has a very specific date in history. Now, if this is the kind of content that reveals the hidden origins of the beliefs billions of people hold sacred, subscribe to this channel right now. Turn on notifications, and drop a comment telling me, did you know any of this before watching? That conversation matters, and that engagement is how we keep making content like this. Let's continue. In 586 BCE, The Babylonian Empire conquered the kingdom of Judah, destroyed Solomon's temple, and dragged the Jewish elite into exile in Babylon. This event, known as the Babylonian exile, is one of the most significant events in Jewish history. The Jewish people spent decades living under Babylonian rule, away from their homeland, questioning their faith, and wondering why their God had abandoned them. Then, in 539 BCE, everything changed. Cyrus the Great, the king of the Persian Empire and a devout Zoroastrian, conquered Babylon and freed the Jewish people. He did not just free them. He funded the rebuilding of their temple. He sent them home with resources and royal protection. Cyrus is the only non-Jewish figure in the entire Hebrew Bible who is called a Messiah, an anointed one of God. That is how profoundly the Jewish people were impacted by their encounter with the Persians. And here is where the theological transformation begins. Before the Babylonian exile, ancient Judaism looked almost nothing like what it became afterward. Early Judaism had no concept of heaven as a reward for the righteous. It had no concept of hell as a punishment for the wicked. The afterlife in early Jewish thought was Sheol, a gray, shadowy underworld where everyone went after death regardless of how they lived. Good people and bad people ended up in the same place. There was no judgment, there was no separation, there was no reward and no punishment, just a dim, silent existence in the dust. There was also no devil. The Hebrew word Satan appears in the Old Testament, but it does not mean what modern people think it means. In the book of Job, the Satan is not an evil being. He is a member of God's heavenly court, a sort of prosecuting attorney whose job is to test human faithfulness. He works for God, not against God. He is an angel with a function, not a cosmic villain waging war against heaven. The idea of Satan as an independent evil force, a fallen angel, a tempter, a ruler of hell, none of that exists in pre-exilic Judaism. After the exile, after decades of living under Persian rule and absorbing Zoroastrian ideas, everything changed. Suddenly, Jewish texts began talking about a cosmic battle between good and evil. Suddenly, there are angels with names and hierarchies, like the Zoroastrian Amisha Spentas. Suddenly, there is a final judgment, where the righteous are separated from the wicked. Suddenly, there is a figure of ultimate evil who opposes God. Suddenly, there is a resurrection of the dead at the end of days. Suddenly, there is a savior figure, a Messiah, who will come at the end of time to defeat evil and restore justice. Every single one of these concepts existed in Zoroastrianism centuries before they appeared in Judaism. Every single one entered Jewish theology during or immediately after the period of Persian rule. The timeline is not ambiguous. The influence is not speculative. Scholars have been documenting this for over a century. Let's walk through the specific ideas that Zoroastrianism introduced and that the Abrahamic religions adopted. Heaven and hell. Zoroastrianism taught that after death, every soul crosses the Chinvat bridge, the bridge of the separator. For the righteous, the bridge is wide and easy to cross, leading to the house of song, a paradise of light, joy, and eternal communion with Ahura Mazda. For the wicked, the bridge narrows to the width of a razor blade, and the soul falls into the house of lies, a pit of darkness, torment, and suffering. This is the first clearly articulated concept of heaven and hell in any religion. The Christian heaven and the Islamic Jannah are direct descendants of Zoroastrian paradise. The Christian hell and the Islamic Jahannam are direct descendants of the Zoroastrian house of lies. Even the bridge concept survived. Islam's As-Sirat is a bridge over hell that the righteous cross on Judgment Day, razor thin for sinners. The structural parallel is almost identical. The devil. Angra Mainyu, the Zoroastrian embodiment of evil, became the template for every devil figure in the Abrahamic traditions. Before Zoroastrian influence, the God of the Hebrew Bible did both good and evil. Isaiah 45 verse 7 explicitly states that God says, "I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things." The early Jewish God was responsible for everything, good and bad. It was only after exposure to Zoroastrian dualism that Jewish theology began separating good and evil into two opposing figures. God became purely good. Evil was outsourced to a separate being. That being eventually became the Satan of Christianity and the Iblis of Islam, angels and demons. Zoroastrianism had an elaborate hierarchy of spiritual beings. The Amesha Spentas were 7 holy immortals who served Ahura Mazda, each governing an aspect of creation. Below them were the Yazatas, lesser divine beings who assisted in the cosmic battle against evil. On the other side, Angramenu commanded his own army of devas, malicious spirits who spread lies, disease, and destruction. This framework, armies of angels serving God and armies of demons serving the devil, did not exist in early Judaism. It entered Jewish thought during the Persian period and was fully developed by the time of Christianity and Islam. The end of the world. Zoroastrianism taught that history is not cyclical. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. At the end of time, a final savior called the Sociant would be born. He would lead the forces of good in a last battle against evil. The dead would be resurrected. A final judgment would separate the righteous from the wicked. Evil would be destroyed forever, and the world would be purified and made perfect for eternity. This is the Zoroastrian apocalypse, and it is the blueprint for every apocalyptic tradition that followed. The Christian Book of Revelation, the Islamic Day of Judgment, the Jewish concept of the Messianic Age, all of them follow the same narrative structure. A savior arrives. The dead are raised. Good defeats evil. The world is made new. Zoroastrianism wrote that story first. The resurrection of the dead. The idea that the dead will physically rise from their graves at the end of time is not a Jewish idea. It does not appear anywhere in the Torah. It first appears in Jewish texts that were written during or after Persian influence, most notably in the Book of Daniel, which was composed during the 2nd century BCE. The concept came directly from Zoroastrian eschatology, where the resurrection of the dead was a central teaching for centuries before Daniel was written. Like this video right now. Share it with someone who has never heard of Zoroastrianism. And leave a comment telling me which of these borrowed concepts surprised you the most. Now let me bring this home. So here is the picture. The religion that most of the Western world lives inside, whether Christian, Muslim, or Jewish, is built on a theological framework that was invented by a Persian prophet over 3,000 years ago. Heaven, hell, the devil, angels, demons, the apocalypse, the resurrection of the dead, the final judgment, the cosmic war between good and evil. None of these ideas are original to the Abrahamic faiths. All of them trace back to Zoroastrianism. All of them entered Jewish theology during a specific and documented period of Persian cultural influence. And all of them were then inherited by Christianity and Islam as if they had always been there. Billions of people believe in heaven and hell, in the devil, and in the resurrection of the dead, without knowing that a Persian prophet invented these concepts over a millennium before Christianity, that early Judaism had no such figure, and that the idea of resurrection was borrowed from Persian religion during the exile. Zoroastrianism itself is nearly extinct. There are fewer than 200,000 practitioners left in the world, mostly in India and Iran. Its temples are fading. Its scriptures are studied by almost no one. The religion that built the spiritual architecture of the Western world has been almost completely forgotten, while the religions that borrowed from it claim divine originality. And that's the part that should make you think. If the most fundamental concepts in Christianity, Islam, and Judaism were borrowed from an older religion, then what does that tell us about where religious ideas actually come from? They don't come from God. They come from culture. They come from contact between civilizations. They come from one group of humans encountering another group's ideas and absorbing them, reshaping them, and eventually forgetting where they came from in the first place. Zarathustra stood in the deserts of ancient Persia and imagined a universe divided between light and darkness, a final battle at the end of time, a paradise for the good and a pit of fire for the wicked. He told that story so powerfully that it echoed across 3,000 years and became the invisible scaffolding holding up three of the largest religions on Earth. And the greatest irony of all is that the religions that inherited his vision buried his name, forgot his contribution, and claimed his ideas as their own divine revelation. That's not inspiration. That's plagiarism. And 3 billion people are living inside a borrowed story without ever knowing who wrote it. Thank you for watching. If this video changed the way you think about where your beliefs actually come from, that's not a threat. That's the beginning of something better. If you want more content that traces religion back to its real origins, subscribe to this channel. Hit the bell. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. We will see you in the next one. Reason over rituals. Always.